What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego back with some more boxing. In case you guys haven't heard, Danny Garcia will be fighting March 15th in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. They just announced it yesterday. Danny Garcia Swift is back, and he's going to be facing Mauricio Herrera. The undercard is going to consist of Deontay Wilder and Malik Scott, and Ponce de Leon versus Juanma Lopez. Now, I want to give you the ego thoughts, my insight to the fight. Start with the main event. We'll start from the top, move our way down. This is a tough fight, but as I mentioned when I first heard the rumors that this fight was going to get made, I don't think it's the best possible fight out there. Reason being is Danny Garcia has stood the test of time, and what I mean by that is he's been considered the underdog several times in recent fights. He was supposed to lose a lot of fights. If you look at it, Eric Morales, part 1, Morales was the veteran, and Morales was also the champion at the time. So, Danny Garcia wasn't supposed to win. In fact, a lot of people didn't even know who Danny Garcia was at the time. I remember, I think I had briefly seen him. I was like, who's this fucking clown with gold teeth? He had like colored gold grill, like gold ones. And I was like, oh, wow. And then we walked out with the gold grill, and he had a decent performance. But I don't think that showed his best. He was still young and coming up, and I guess he was trying to play it smart. But in the rematch, he looked a lot better. In the Amir Khan fight, Danny Garcia was a last-minute replacement for Lamont Peterson, who tested with high levels of testosterone. So the Khan-Peterson rematch was scrapped. Danny Garcia filled the void, and he was able to create the upset, and it's been on and popping for him ever since. Another fight, Zab Judah. This was before the Paulie Malignaggi Judah. This was before it was nothing but apparent that Zab Judah is washed up or doesn't really have anything left in the tank. And a lot of people, if you go over my old videos when I was talking about the fight before the fight happened, said Zab Judah was going to get in that ass. Some people were from New York. Vids06 was one of them. I haven't even heard from Vids06 in a while, so let me know if he's still making videos, if you've seen him. But cool dude. Anyway, he was one of the people who said that Zab Judah, stylistically and spiritually, mentally, whatever you want to say, was going to kill Danny Garcia. And it wasn't just him. I'm not trying to single anybody out. A lot of people thought that. And I even said that it's a good, stylistically on paper, that's a good matchup, and Zab Judah has all the tools, speed, southpaw stance, power, both hands to win. But I stopped betting on Zab a while ago because for the most part, when I'm making a decision in terms of prediction, if someone is showing me they can battle adversity, keep a level head, and they're consistent, most often I'm going to pick the consistent person. So someone that can have skills out of the world, but if they're not showing me consistency, a lot of times I'm going to pick against them. And that's what I did in the Zab Judah fight. And I was right. He had a good showing in the championship rounds, but he still clearly lost that fight. Then Lucas Matisse, everyone said Danny Garcia is going to get murdered. The machine, the Terminator is going to kill him. And that wasn't the case. Some people even made excuses after. Oh, it's because his eye. Guess what? That's a part of boxing. Cuts happen, injuries happen, accidental headbutts happen, swelling happens, and you have to overcome that. Lucas Matisse wasn't able to do that, clearly lost the fight. So, from my stance, Mauricio Herrera, a tough opponent, but every time he stepped up to the upper echelon fighter, I guess you could say, the upper echelon 140 fighters, he lost, except for Ruslan Provodnikov, and this was years ago. He was the first one to defeat Ruslan Provodnikov, but this was Ruslan before he caught that momentum, before the Timothy Bradley, before the Ruslan beat Mike Alvarado. So as far as Mauricio Herrera, he stepped up to top 15 ranked guys in Kareem Mayfield and Mike Alvarado and lost both of those. And he also went, I believe, got a majority decision against Mike Dallas Jr., who Lucas Matisse knocked out brutally in the first round. So to me, to go from that high, that adrenaline of Danny Garcia's chronological order, like Eric Morales rematch, Zab Judah, Amir Khan, Lucas Matisse, and to go from that crescendo back down to Mauricio Herrera, I feel is backtracking. Now, on the flip side of that coin, it's still a tough fight because Mauricio Herrera, he's tough. He has an awkward style. He has heart. He's going to give you some rounds. I just still think it's backtracking. But again, on the flip side of the coin, Danny Garcia has had a tough schedule. So, I mean, he wants to have a softer touch opponent that's still keeping him active. And it's not a soft touch in terms of a complete and utter bum. You know what I mean? Like Marcos Maidana went back home, in Argentina and fought a fucking nobody and knocked him out. So at least he's fighting in front of a Puerto Rican crowd with somebody who's tough and could pull the upset, but I highly, highly doubt it based on what he's shown us every other time he stepped up to top 15 ranked guys. So I still think it's backtracking, especially since the ultimate goal for me is to see Danny Garcia and his career built to a pay-per-view status. And I just don't know that this fight would do that for him. Lucas Batiste rematch would be interesting. I don't know if he wants to deal with that or if it's one of those, because Lucas is a dangerous opponent. So maybe he's just content with, I beat him handedly the first time. Let's leave that chapter alone. But there's other good fights. I think a Kareem Mayfield fight makes more sense. A fight with Lamont Peterson, who looked good against Deary Jean. I just think it's backtracking any way you slice it. But as a fighter, I guess he's entitled to that based on having a tough schedule and getting to this point. I still think for someone who you're trying to make a future payday with Mayweather, a future pay-per-view attraction, it's still backtracking a bit. So that's just my opinion. But nonetheless, it's a tough fight. Some people didn't like when I said it the first time about Danny Garcia backtracking to step Mauricio Herrera, but I think it's absolutely true. There's a lot of good fights and good fighters who are tough enough to give you a challenge, to give anyone a challenge, yet do they deserve the fight? Not necessarily. And I don't think Mauricio Herrera, having 2 consecutive losses with top 15 guys, Kareem Mayfield and Mike Alvarado, and then fighting 2 no-name, 2 bums, puts him back in the winner's circle to the point where he should trump a Lamont Peterson, trump a Kareem Mayfield, and get that opportunity. That's just my opinion. Again, Mauricio Herrera, he's tough. I will say that he was the first to defeat Ruslan Provodnikov. However, I see it as backtracking. There's a lot of people out there, like I said, who will give you some rounds and give you a tough fight. Personally, some people might think I'm crazy for it, but I think a guy like Jesus Soto Caras will be more of a difficult fight for a Mayweather than perhaps some other people at welterweight, because styles make fights. And you got to look at Soto Caras. Soto Caras has a fucking monstrous chin. A lot of people say Mayweather doesn't have like true devastating welterweight power. And Mayweather's older, and Mayweather's also a fighter who's going to fight in a more flat-footed style than he did in the lighter weight divisions. I mean, he shows he still has legs behind him, but Jesus Soto Caras is a pressure fighter. He has long ass arms, so he throws these like looping punches from awkward angles, and he's a busy fighter where he throws a high volume of punches. He showed you that in the Keith Thurman fight. He hit Keith Thurman with it was like a fucking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar skyhook. Like, it was like a long ass punch. And again, having a chin, having a like obsessive work rate where you don't back down, and having that chin to keep you in there. I mean, that could trouble Mayweather, that style. But does he deserve a fight with Floyd Mayweather? No. So that's my point. There's a lot of guys, like, stylistically I could think of in my head. And the fight, like I said, I truly believe I'm not saying Jesus Soto Caras can beat Mayweather. I didn't say that. But what I'm saying is his style could give Mayweather problems. Like, Mayweather, you have to keep in mind, Soto Caras is a guy who fought at 154 before. So he has the frame to do it. He has a lengthy body. He's a veteran. And, I mean, everything else that I just mentioned. But he doesn't deserve a Mayweather fight. So if he were to fight Mayweather, then a lot of people would talk shit. So I don't expect anything less for the Danny Garcia. I know some people aren't going to be okay with that. So when you're the lineal champion, or when you're that dude, you're the pound for pound greatness that the writers and the critics are starting to proclaim you as, the pressure and the bar is a lot higher for you. Mayweather got out of jail after the Cotto fight and immediately fought his mandatory. So a guy who hadn't lost, and that was Robert Guerrero. Look at it like Sergio Martinez, lineal champion in his division, and they're talking about making a fight with Miguel Cotto, who just looks superb under new leadership with Freddie Roach. Imagine if Sergio Martinez decided or elected to fight somebody on a Mauricio Herrera scale at middleweight. They'll be like, oh, this motherfucker's ducking Gennady Golovkin, which people still say he's doing regardless. But imagine if he did that, if he wasn't fighting as a lineal champion, the tougher fight like Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto, even though he's coming up in weight division, he's still a game opponent, still a veteran, and Sergio Martinez is in the big middleweight. But again, imagine the lineal champion in a softer touch, feel-good fight with a Mauricio Herrera caliber person. Like I said, if Sergio Martinez fought somebody at middleweight who was just lost 2 in a row and then fought 2 bums and redeemed themselves a little bit, I know Sergio would get a lot of fucking flack. So that's, I guess, what my thing with Danny Garcia is. As the lineal champion, it's all eyes on me. So people are watching you now. You worked up to this level to fight Mauricio Herrera. To me, it's still taking a step back. You're still going from that high note to just like a medium note. One thing I will say is Golden Boy is smart from a business marketing standpoint. They realize Danny Garcia doesn't have the same appeal to actual Puerto Ricans like a Felix Trinidad, a Miguel Cotto, or now a Felix Verdejo. And by fighting in Puerto Rico, it sounds like they're trying to appeal to that demographic. He is Puerto Rican American, Danny Garcia is. However, I said this in a previous video, sometimes in Latin communities, if you don't speak Spanish and you don't speak that native tongue, some people consider you less Hispanic, so less Latin. So I think this is also an attempt from Golden Boy to broaden his horizons, make him that bigger style. So it makes sense, like I said, despite what anyone thinks of the fight, it makes sense from a business standpoint because they're trying to appeal to that demographic, get him some Puerto Ricans on his side, because those guys will support. You know what I mean? Puerto Ricans have been very dedicated fans and a dedicated fan base as long as boxing has been going on. So they're trying to appeal to that, and I think they're putting him in there with an opponent who could be problematic at times, but I highly doubt would knock out Danny Garcia. Again, Mike Dallas Jr., who got obliterated by Lucas Matisse, went the distance with him, with Mauricio Herrera. Danny Garcia looks like he has a hell of a chin and didn't get knocked out from a Lucas Matisse or Amir Khan or whatnot. So I don't think Mauricio Herrera will be able to do it. So they're really, in essence, putting him in there in Puerto Rico, different demographic, with the fighter who could be complex at times, but in my opinion, doesn't really run the risk of getting knocked out by Mauricio Herrera. If anything, he would just get outboxed, or it'd be hard to look good against Mauricio Herrera, but I don't see him getting knocked out. So I think they just want to make him triumphant and look triumphant in front of a new type of crowd, a Puerto Rican fan base. So that's just my thoughts. Anyway, on the undercard, you have Deontay Wilder versus Malik Scott. I like this fight a lot. Deontay Wilder, a fighter who's exciting, who has power, but he's highly unproven. We haven't seen the best of Deontay Wilder. We haven't seen the opponent that's going to bring the best out of Deontay Wilder. Malik Scott is a person who is a solid fighter. He lost to Derek Chisora, but that's not really much shame in losing to a Chisora when Chisora is a veteran, had fought with the Klitschko before, and he's a heavyweight. Any guys in the heavyweight division, one punch can brutally change everything. So I really like this fight. It's kind of like brains versus brawn. I'm anxious to see how Malik Scott does with Deontay Wilder's power, and I'm anxious to see how Deontay Wilder can do with a fighter who may not get knocked out in the first round. Deontay Wilder really needs to get some rounds in because so far his power's been so great that the people in front of him have been going quick. I need to see how he does along the stretch or with an opponent that makes him think, kind of like Chavez Jr. versus Andy Lee. If you watch the early rounds in that fight, Andy Lee was using his height appropriately, and Chavez Jr. was able or not able to corner him. So I want to see how he does against a style that may last past the first or second round and see what Deontay Wilder really has. And then last, you have Ponce de Leon versus Juanma Lopez. Out of all the fights, this is the fight I'm least looking forward to. Really, because Ponce is coming off a loss, I believe. I don't think he's fought since Abner Mars. I might be wrong. And Juanma Lopez got destroyed by Mikey Garcia. So it's a fight that if the rematch happened earlier, it would have made more sense. It would have been better. But I just think Juanma Lopez is punch drunk, to be honest. I don't think he really has it anymore. And it's just not that thrilling of a match. Danny Garcia versus Mauricio Herrera, at the very least, it's a tough fight, even if Mauricio Herrera, in my opinion, doesn't really deserve it. Deontay Wilder versus Malik Scott, that's a fight that you have two heavyweights and two guys, one seasoned, one not as seasoned, one with brutal power, one with skill. So I like that. But the Ponce de Leon, Juanma Lopez, that's in the appropriate order. That should come out first because it's a fight that really doesn't matter, I guess you could say, because I don't know. I just don't see it being that great of a fight. I could be wrong. Let me know what you guys think of this fight, March 15th, of this undercard. Leave a comment. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.